1982, Edmonton, Alberta. Cold, flat, quiet. A deal was made. Not a massive one, not international, but enough to set something in motion. Two men, a lease, and a plan. Clean, efficient, replicable. The first of the men was named Leroy. The other, his son, Stan. They didn't know it then, but that handshake would set off a ripple, one that would travel west and eventually be felt in every major city in Canada. The early days were simple. The model was lean, the margins tight. But the product, it worked. People liked it. They kept coming back for more. By the late 80s, expansion was inevitable, and with it came attention. More money, more influence. Scale. That was a tipping point. At this time, a couple associates from their team felt like they could improve on the formula. They split off quietly. No drama and no press. They wanted something of their own, a new direction. And in 1988, on a quiet street in North Vancouver, another deal was made. Another deal whose repercussions would be felt for decades to come. What started on that quiet Edmonton street in 1982 was no longer just a small business. It was a genre, a system, a formula. And what you might not know is, you already do know it. You've seen it firsthand. You've eaten under its lights. You've ordered the same cocktail in 4 different cities without realizing it. But to understand how we got here, and how everything started to feel the same, we can possibly trace it back to that moment in Edmonton. That handshake in 1982.
This isn't a crime story. It's about restaurants, or more specifically, how one family shaped the way casual fine dining restaurants look, taste, and feel all across Canada. But I'm not here to talk about business strategy or branding. I feel like in Vancouver, this actually goes a lot deeper. In my opinion, this type of restaurant, polished, safe, fancy but not too fancy, is popular because it reflects something about us Western Canadians. What we want, what we're comfortable with, and maybe what we're afraid of. Sometimes I go to lunch with some of my colleagues at work, and we often end up at one of these places because they're guaranteed to serve you pretty quickly. Look, the intro was a little bit dramatic, but sometimes when I'm in a restaurant, I find myself asking the question, is everything a Cactus Club? Shareables, bowls, handhelds, mains, nice furniture, hanging greenery, and great locations. Happy hour dishes and staff who look like they were cut out of a fashion magazine. If you were dropped into a Canadian chain restaurant in 2025, you might be forgiven for not being able to identify which one you're in. Of course, I would know instantly because I've spent a good portion of my adult life inside these establishments. But then again, I am also living the dream. But maybe I'm really living the meme.
Some clarification. The two men from the start of the story, Leroy and Stan Fuller, co-founded Earl's. The two who left, who had worked for them previously to start another restaurant, were Richard Jaffrey and Scott Morrison. Their restaurant, which opened in 1988 on Pemberton Avenue in North Van, was called the Cactus Club Cafe. 4 years later, in 1992, another rival appeared. A restaurant popped up in Calgary going by the name Joey Tomatoes, serving pizza and pasta. 8 years later, they would rebrand as Joey Tomatoes Mediterranean Grill, having broadened their menu. And another 5 more years later, you might know where this is going, they were simply known as Joey. Now with a dozen locations across Canada, the mastermind behind this upstart casual fine dining chain was a man by the name of Jeff Fuller. At the same time that Joey was coming up with its final name, Scott Morrison was also making moves. He launched a new restaurant on Lonsdale Avenue called Brown's Social House. He parted ways with the Cactus Club, selling his share to Jaffrey. Jeff Fuller was not to be satisfied with just a couple dozen Joey locations, and so he opened a new venture at Kitts Beach called Local Public Eatery. And yes, if you thought the fact his name is Fuller was not a coincidence, you are correct. He is Stan's brother. Leroy and Stan opened a side project called the Beach House in a beautiful heritage building in West Van in 2010. Most recently, in 2017, the Cactus Group, under Richard Jaffrey, launched a new sister chain called King Taps. There was a bit of a power struggle in the management of the Cactus Club Cafe between the Fullers, owning a partial stake in the company, and founder Jaffrey. In 2022, the Fuller family bought Jaffrey out of Cactus to assume full control of it and King Taps. And that brings us up to the present. With King Taps about to open in Lonsdale Quay, I was curious about what it was, and that curiosity led to learning about this whole web of connections. The Fuller family have built an empire in this market, and with three main businesses, their main competition is themselves.
And part of our secret is Jeff gets up every day and wants to kill Earls, and I want to get up every day and kill Joey. And it's the same with Cactus. So we're competing heavily, and it's a very interesting dynamic, one that I've never heard of before.
It does make me wonder if internally they feel a need to see their chicken jockey for first place.
The natural question is, what makes these types of restaurants so successful here? I mean, Earls and the like are successful across Canada, but in BC, they're practically the whole ecosystem. My theory is that it has less to do with what these restaurants are serving and more to do with our own psychological needs. We live in a city that's kind of hooked on the safe, casual fine dining zone. You know what I'm talking about. Nicely textured menus, no tablecloths, feels upscale but isn't too fancy or intimidating, and most importantly, no French accents. It would be kind of dumb not to mention the structural reasons for Earlsification, such as high startup costs, real estate values, and also the ability to buy in bulk. But I think that's kind of intuitive, so I'm going to present something else today. There's a deeper reason that these types of businesses tend to do well out here, and I think it has to do with the Vancouver personality. Now, I might be projecting a little bit here, but I mean, this is a city where people would rather inhale secondhand crack smoke than to ask someone to stop lighting up on a train. Are kind of conflict avoidant, and in general, we avoid discomfort. Part of this craving for safety and reliability come from people feeling squeezed. When time, money, and energy are scarce, no one wants to risk wasting any of it. It's human nature to guard against the worst case scenario. And in Vancouver, where cost of living is high and stability feels quite fragile, this is visible pretty much everywhere you go. I think there's a good argument that Vancouver's taste for Earlsified restaurants is a psychological adaptation to a city which often feels emotionally and materially pressured. After meeting people from all over, one thing kind of stands out to me. Vancouverites aren't actually boring. They're just tired. They're jaded. Life here is expensive, tiring, and can often be isolating. And so when people are choosing what to eat, where to go on a night out for Friday, or even who to date, we have so little appetite for risk because we just cannot be putting more chaos on our plates. Nobody wants to feel taken advantage of, but with Earls-style restaurants, you don't. You get exactly what you expect. In a place of precarity, reliability feels like luxury. It's not just a night out, it's a $30 moment of control. That longing for control starts from the top. We live in a beautiful city, but it is tightly managed. Zoning measures, strict bylaws, NIMBYs, there's like a real culture of containment here. The people and places are beautiful, but guarded. And Earlsification slots right into that. Manicured. Perfect. Safe. Earlsification beyond Earls. Once you see this, you can't really unsee it. Earls is a format. It is a mode. It is a design language. This, emotionally, a Browns. Is this a cactus? The Village Tap House? What do you mean it's a cactus? So let's take stock. One family, a handful of deals, and an empire of restaurants stretching across Canada. From that handshake in 1982 all the way to King Tap's opening soon at the Quay, the Fuller family have shaped the way that we dine, socialize, and even design our restaurants. Earls, Cactus Club, Local, Joey, Browns, all connected by legacy or by blood. But the real story here isn't about ownership. It's about resonance. These places, they work here. And not because they tricked us, but because they understood us. The Fuller family didn't invent the Western Canadian vibe. They just bottled it. They built places that are polished, but not pretentious. Social but not chaotic, and fancy but never intimidating. In a city where life is expensive, exhausting, and isolating, that reliability is gold. So no, I don't think we've been brainwashed. I think we just like what works. Me personally, I like the drinks. I like the booths. I like a happy hour that makes me happy. The service is great. I was offered a secret menu item the first thing when I walked into the Cactus. So does that make me basic? Maybe. Yeah! Or maybe it just makes me someone who found something that works. These restaurants didn't shape us. We shaped them. Our preferences, our comfort zones, our risk-averse nature. This whole ecosystem grew around that. And yeah, I still go to Vietnam on 3rd for a number 63 with pork. Still go to Yukomaki for the super combo. These things are not binary or mutually exclusive. You can love a Feeney burger and a shishlik kebab. You can go to Cactus on Friday night and then Saturday morning go to Tommy's. These places give a lot of people jobs. Chances are, if you've grown up around here or spent any amount of time, you either know someone or you yourself worked at one of these chains. It's a rite of passage. You learn to multitask, maybe make some lifelong friends, and then you also get yelled at by drunk aunties on brunch. It's a win-win-win.
So, as it turns out, is everything a Cactus Club really isn't the right question. And after looking into this, I don't even think is everything in Earls is an important question either. At the end of the day, you choose where you spend your money, and these restaurants stumbled on something before anyone else did, connecting with the Western Canadian vibe in a way that propelled the Fuller family into restaurant royalty. So I guess all there is left to say is,
The names change, the menus evolve, but in Vancouver, if you strip it all back, you're probably still at an Earl's.